And Fight Society podcast is live and on the air. It's Jeremy Loper, that's me, and this is Damon Martin.
Yo.
Welcome to our little extravaganza where we talk about mixed martial arts and everything combat sports weekly here.
After you were back from vacation.
Yeah, man, I went down to New Orleans. You know, I would like people to tweet me, at Jeremy Loper. I was going to roll while I was there, and I was going to take my son and his friend, who is my coach's son. We were going to go roll somewhere, and I couldn't really think of anybody that I knew in the area that I would know off the top of my head. Most of the guys that are from New Orleans no longer are there.
Yeah,
like Daniel Cormier. I mean, you know, not that I was going to go roll with DC, but you know, like whatever gym.
There is a gym in Lafayette where Dustin Poirier works out still.
Is that an American Top Team facility?
No, it's not, but I know he trains down there because that's Tim Crater has a gym down there, I think. But obviously, Dustin does most of his camps now at American Top Team in Florida. But there is a gym in Lafayette. I think it's Tim Crater, former UFC fighter, who has a gym down there. But I don't know how far Lafayette is from New Orleans.
I don't think it's real close. But I was actually in an area called Bush, Louisiana. And let me tell you something that you're going to love this. So right by my wife's aunt and uncle's house, all right, there's not much, meaning like they live in the country. Okay, Bush, Louisiana kind of says it all. All right, they're in the bush. But right next to their house is a gas station. And this is the greatest like little strip gas station I've ever seen in my life. It's not a strip mall in the sense that it's just the gas station store and then two other businesses. Can you guess what the two other businesses are?
Two other businesses.
Okay, too long. Karate and a washing, like laundromat. I'm like,
karate.
I'm like, what do? You go in, get yourself a Mountain Dew, head over to the karate school for some, karate chop lessons, and then you go wash your gi afterwards as you enjoy like a chalupa.
That's a pretty ridiculous combination.
It's the most ridiculous Louisiana. Like, what is happening down there?
Karate laundromat. Well, I remember they had the place in Cincinnati. Do you remember Sudsy Malone's?
Oh, that's funny.
The Rock and Roll Laundromat. Remember that?
Yes.
It was a laundromat with a concert hall, so you could go in and watch music and do laundry. It's gone now. They closed it years ago, but Sudsy Malone's
ahead of their time.
I saw many a concert there. Unfortunately,
did you really?
They did not have karate there, unfortunately. But I saw tons of bands at Sudsy Malone's.
They got some guy like Rex Kwon Do style in the other room, just yelling out moves. Tiger Claw to the face, go!
Yeah, that's apparently laundromat and combining with other things is the way to go. Laundromat and concerts, laundromat and karate.
And I am a karate black belt, so I'm not making fun of the art of karate. Okay,
I'm not making fun of karate at all. I just want a karate laundromat next to me. Is what I want. So.
Well, I feel like karate's making a little bit of a comeback, man. Anthony Pettis, fresh off a win at UFC 213, has opened up a successful chain of schools just to the north of us, up in the Milwaukee area.
Yeah, karate. Yeah,
Northwest.
You got Wonder Boy is a karate stylist, of course.
Does he have schools? His dad does in
they have
South Carolina, right?
Yeah, they have schools down there. Yeah, and he still teaches. I remember one time it was ahead of I want to say maybe it was a rematch with Tyron Woodley. I had an interview scheduled with Wonder Boy, and he had to reschedule because he was driving kids to his karate class, and they were having like really bad storms or something in South Carolina, and so like he was driving like a bus.
Pay attention, right?
He was like driving with children, like getting them to karate class because he was like they couldn't make it to class because of the storm, so he went and picked them up and brought them in. That's the kind of guy Wonder Boy is.
Shout out to all the karate guys out there, man. So let's get right into 213.
We got to because we have to talk about Conor.
I know.
Conor
Do you even
Floyd.
want to go back to 213?
No, we got to go. There's a lot to talk about with 213.
Amanda Nunes, I mean, of course, now pulling out of the fight where can you recite the original card? Off the top of your head?
Original card. What was it? 213. It was going to be Amanda Nunes.
You had
Valentina Shevchenko. You had originally you had Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw.
Yes, that
was before Yoel Romero and Robert Whittaker got made.
Yoel and Whittaker were way down on the list.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even made. They made it because
they did.
They made it because Cody TJ dropped off. They needed another big fight. Cody TJ was supposed to be the headliner along with Amanda and Valentina. That one dropped off, and then they added Romero and Whittaker to kind of make up for it. And they were going to have Cowboy Lawler. That one got scrapped as well.
That's right.
Overeem and Verdum. Yeah, so they had like, I want to say it was like 3 fights that got scrapped off that card.
Well, that was the big, that's traditionally, that's where we get the big fights.
Yeah, International Fight Week.
And do you think that changes now? Or do you think it was just an off year? I mean,
3
obviously.
years in a row.
Yeah, that's true, because last year was the John Jones thing.
And then the year before that, most people don't remember the year before that because it ended up being a great card, but it was Chad Mendez and Conor McGregor. It was supposed to be Conor and Aldo.
That's right.
That was another one that fell apart 2 weeks before the event. So this is 3 years in a row where the main event has changed within 2 weeks of the event.
It's so weird that event is haunted, by this change.
Yeah, you kind of forget about it a little bit because last year we still got, Lesnar came back.
Right.
And, we still had
but
some
we got
big,
Anderson in D.C. last year, which was weird.
Which is last minute. So, yeah, you still had some big events. But, yeah, this is almost like cursed events with this, with this thing happening 3 years in a row at International Fight Week. And the year before that, if I'm not mistaken, I remember it was Chris Weidman and Lyoto Machida and Ronda Rousey and Alexis Davis, but it wasn't as big as everyone thought it was going to be. Like, it felt like it was going to end up being a bigger card, and it did end up being a bigger card. So,
well, if you remember, the UFC 200 card was technically headlined by Miesha Tate.
Yeah, and Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, that is so weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, with the Brock Lesnar fight on there, it almost seems silly.
Yeah, and then they had Aldo and Edgar as the third fight down from the top.
They should have put Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe on that, man.
Yeah, that was dope.
That WWE pay-per-view name was terrible.
Great
balls of fire. Like, is fucking Huey Lewis in the news? Not who is that? Jerry Lee Lewis? Like, is that guy like not copyright infringement all over that? Like,
there were all these pictures showing up from after the show of like the wrestlers standing in the ring with like the perfectly timed pictures where you could see like the wrestler standing there and just the word balls next to their mouth.
God, that's
like,
hilarious.
Just balls like all night long. People were putting out pictures of wrestlers with balls next to their mouth.
I waited the whole night for the return of the epic hardcore legend Balls Mahoney, but nothing happened.
Yeah, he died. So
did he die?
He's dead.
Holy crap. Oh, shit. Whoops.
You'll be waiting for a while for him to come back, Loper, because...
No, I gotta just wait for Balls here. You go ahead. I'll just wait. Hang out a little while.
Yeah, he's not around. He's not around anymore.
Unbelievable.
So.
Unbelievable.
You'll be waiting a while.
So 213, obviously a little underwhelming with everything else that's floating around in the MMA world. You had, like we talked about the main event, Whitaker and Yoel Romero, where Yoel Romero proving that dude is not built for 5-round fights.
Well, he definitely got tired out, and that was a worry. Some people said I didn't think it was as big of a concern as other people, but it seemed like he definitely petered out a little bit.
He was getting fucked up. I mean, like at one point in the 5th round. I mean, like I was scared for him because I was like, man, he's getting hit hard.
Yeah, and that's all on Whitaker with one leg basically.
Right,
Whitaker had a leg injury, and so it's kind of crazy that he was able to do that in rounds 3, 4, and 5 to come back. Because after that initial, because I noticed it too when Joe Rogan brought it up on the broadcast. When he kicked his leg, and I noticed he was kind of weirdly not stepping on that leg, and I was like, here we go. This whole main event's screwed. Like, I thought that. I was like, he blew his knee out. You know what I mean? It's going to end up being that Anderson Silva, Patrick Cote thing again. Remember that from a couple of years ago when Cote blew his knee out in the fight? Kind of get that anticlimactic ending. I thought, man, here we go again.
Yep.
Somehow Whitaker fought through it, which is insane. Because I don't know how bad his knee was jacked up, but he was definitely hurting.
And we just saw that with who else did that just happen to? Somebody else just got hurt and lost. Oh, it was the dude from Bellator. Who's the Michael Chandler?
Oh, yeah, the ankle injury. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, very similar. But, 213, I mean, you had that fight, which, wins with, or ends rather, with Robert Whitaker getting this interim belt at 185 and Yoel Romero getting heckled by Michael Bisping, like inappropriately too, man. Like at one point I'm like, Dana's sitting right there. Like, don't you just like, when your mom, like when she slammed on the brakes, she would always throw the arm over so you didn't fly out the windshield. I felt like at some point Dana should have threw the arm over on Michael Bisping and been like, all right, man, pump the brakes for a hot second.
Yeah, we got people, when it's getting to the point where we're tearing up people's flags and now Yoel Romero's burning the British flag. I'm like, maybe we should go a different route with promoting a fight than flag burning. That
Bisping lived in the United States longer than he lived in the UK, I feel.
He's been in the United States for a while now, yeah. He's lived in Los Angeles for quite a few years. But, that was pretty crazy.
Nobody can get Jesus.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy that happened with the whole tearing up the flag, and then he burned the flag yesterday, and I was like, guys, like I don't mind promoting fights, you can go a little overboard, but when it comes to burning flags and tearing up flags, and it was
So where do you think Yoel Romero goes from here, man? I mean, like the guy's 40, one of the greatest Olympic athletes of all time. I don't think he's built for a championship in the UFC.
It depends on who he fought, because I think he would have been a massive favorite against Bisping, but
do you
obviously
think he could have taken him?
It depends, because Bisping could out-cardio him. Bisping's got incredible conditioning. Bisping would just have to survive those first couple rounds, which is tough to do. But if he survived, Bisping could take over. Bisping's a volume striker. He doesn't have the knockout power that Robert Whitaker typically does, but he could out-volume him over 5 rounds. But I don't know because, I think the most logical matchup now that Gegard Mousasi is gone, unfortunately.
That's shocking, too.
Is Yoel Romero against Luke Rockhold. I think that's the one that makes the most sense. And then you have another kind of number one contender at that point.
That's a great matchup.
Yeah. I think that's the one that makes the most sense.
I think Luke is the killer in that division. I think that fight with Michael Bisping, with all respect to the count, I think that, he was the stars were aligned for him that night, so to speak. I mean, he did knock him out, but I believe, in a rematch, things would probably not go Bisping's way, in my opinion. But everybody wants to see that third fight anyhow, so, I mean, that's got to be somewhere down the road if Bisping holds on to this championship. Do you think Robert Whittaker can murk Michael Bisping?
He can. That's assuming it happens, because I still think depending on what happens with Robert Whittaker's knee, if it's jacked up and he's going to be out for a few months, I still think they end up doing GSP and Bisping. As much as they protested about that, I think it still could happen.
What happens to the interim championship that they just created?
I don't know.
It just goes away?
The interim titles are just terrible. They do it to promote a card. That's the same reason they're doing this now. They're just doing it to promote the card. That's all they're doing. It was Whittaker and Romero was the best possible matchup they could have made at middleweight, without a doubt. But to add a little extra oomph to the card, you make it an interim title fight. Now you can promote the card as a 2 championship fight card. That's what it comes down to.
I think when you see Yoel Romero, you want to believe like he's like a supervillain from a comic book, and you want to believe like he's just the endless power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the interim title thing bugs me, because back in the day when interim titles were put out there, it was because something serious had happened. Frank Mir got into a motorcycle crash.
Right.
He was going to be out for at least a year. They crowned Andre Arlovski champion. Dominic Cruz was out for like 3.5 years, and they finally crowned Renan Barao as an interim champion.
That's right.
Now these interim titles are just getting tossed out there to promote cards, like they did it with Holloway and Pettis.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They needed a title fight, so they're just like, here's an interim title, like this one. They did it. It's not because Romero and Whittaker didn't deserve to be in that kind of fight. They did, but they're doing it because they wanted to promote a double title fight card. Because Bisping, for all you can say about Bisping, and you can say, oh, the guy is duck top competition, all this crap. He's fought in October. It hasn't even been a year yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? If he had been out for a year already, then I could say, okay, we're going to crown an interim champion because it's been too long. It has been less than a year. It's been 9 months since he defended the title. I mean, that's not that.
Can't really justify that.
Yeah, it's not that uncommon. I mean, other people have been out longer. Jose Aldo sat out for over a year twice or 3 times during his UFC career, where he didn't defend the title because of injuries and things like that. And we never crowned an interim champion because it never made sense. It didn't make sense this time either. I know people don't like Bisping for whatever reason, and that's fine, but that's not caution. That's not cause enough to just crown a champion just to promote a card.
Because I think people saw Bisping not be a top contender for years.
Yeah.
Like he was a guy who was, a victim of some interesting fights, and he says, the TRT thing, obviously, with some of the other fighters that he fought.
Well, he did. I mean, he had that. That's legit. He fought a lot of guys who abused steroids and abused, performance-enhancing drugs. That's not
when they were allowed to. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They were not doing anything illegal, but
some guys were. But yeah, I mean. Some guys were, but yeah, but like I said, whether you like Bisping or not, the guy's been out for 9 months. And yes, I understand he may not fight till November is what it's looking like, but that would literally be a year and 1 month. And that's not that uncommon. We've had that happen numerous times in the past. So why it's so weird for him to do it. And I understand people didn't like the fact that he was going to fight George St. Pierre, all this different stuff. I get it. But this was a title fabricated so they could promote a card.
Totally.
And I feel bad that Whittaker, and Romero had to kind of be the victim of that, because they deserve to be that platform. They deserve that spotlight. They deserve to be in a title fight, but just not the way it happened.
You agree with the decision with Alistair Overeem and Vervisio Verdum?
If we're scoring it on the 10-point must system, I did, because I scored at 29-28 for Overeem based on the first 2 rounds. But obviously, Verdum did the most damage in the 3rd round, but I didn't think it was a 10-8 round. And I guess, we're going by this. If we're going by the system that's in place, right. I thought Overeem won. But
I did too.
It was a garbage fight. It was not a good fight.
Yeah, Overeem fought really cautious, which you can't really blame him. But it is what it is, and it just didn't turn out to be a great heavyweight fight. One thing that was a great, or I should say, more interesting fight was how do you say the guy's name that fought Travis Brown?
Alexei Olenek.
Yeah, that dude. The guy who, for all the jiu-jitsu fans out there, was able to pull off a submission in no gi, which is traditionally, an Ezekiel choke is traditionally done with gi, and he was able to pull this off no-gi in the UFC during a professional, highest-level MMA fight in his last outing before Travis Brown. Once again, goes in there, gets the submission. Once they went to the ground, I was like, what is Travis Brown thinking, dude? Get up, get up. Rogan was calling for him to get up, and he stayed down there, and he paid the price, man, for sure. Now Dana White says Travis Brown should retire. What do you think?
I don't know if he should retire. He's off 4 straight losses. He had moments in that fight. He was definitely winning the early part of that fight. He hurt Derek Lewis in his last fight. There's a mental disconnect with Travis Brown where it's almost like he's lost a little bit of that killer instinct he used to have, and I think his chin is gone. I think that's the biggest thing, because remember that fight with Overeem?
Oh, yeah.
He was getting blasted. And then came out of nowhere with that front kick and just knocked the piss out of Overeem.
Well, a lot of people thought that fight should have been stopped before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And even you look at the Arlovsky fight, he was taking a ton of damage. Now, yes, eventually he got knocked out, but he was taking a ton of damage, and then he came back. You know what I mean? That was a war. I was at that fight.
Was that his last win, or was Schaub his last win?
His last win was Mitrione, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Mitrione was in the middle of that. But he had that fight with Arlovsky where he was blasting away with him. Just an amazing, amazing fight. He got knocked out, but he was taking some shots. But his last few fights, he can't take. I mean, he got rattled against Olynyk. He got knocked out by Brown, or by Lewis. He just doesn't have.
And that was a fight. I mean, obviously on paper he should have won. I mean, Travis Brown was set to be a heavyweight champion at one point.
Oh, he was one fight away. He fought Fabricio Verdum, went 5 rounds, lost, but went 5 hard rounds, and he was. If he would have won that fight, he would have fought for the title.
I mean, can we just say it's the missing of the Jackson Wink camp at this point?
I mean, that's got to be part of it. I mean, listen, I don't begrudge anyone for changing camps because that's part of the sport, and I think that people get a little too wrapped up in the camp changes in this sport because we're so attached to the camps. American Top Team, Jackson's,
but do you think
AKA,
like when they transfer out of a major camp like ATT or like Jackson Wink or Black House or one of these big programs, and they go somewhere smaller, like to Glendale or to this Edmund Tarvarian's place? Do you think that I got to think that plays a big part into it, man?
Well, here's the thing. This is when the microscope gets a little bit, tighter on people, is when you leave a camp and then you don't find the same level of success.
Beautiful, champ. Beautiful.
Yeah. Head movement. No.
The greatest.
That's when people pay attention to it. When you start losing listen, Greg Jackson, Mike Winklejohn, Brandon Gibson, I can't say enough good things about them. Phenomenal camp. But I also understand not one size does not fit all. That's an amazing camp, but not everyone is going to benefit from the training program at Jackson's. Okay, so that's first off. It's an amazing camp, and I think anyone would benefit, but there's not everyone's going to be a perfect fit. So for whatever reason, Travis left and he decided to go elsewhere, and that's fine. That's part of the sport. I get it, and I think people get too obsessed about this camp change thing, but when you see such a huge difference in the performances from when he was with Jackson's to where he's at now, it's night and day. It is night and day, and so you can obviously point to that. Now you can point to other things too, and like I said, his chin. He's taken a lot of damage, and now he can't seemingly take that damage anymore. He doesn't have that that iron chin he once had, and it's hurting him. You can say his aggressiveness isn't what it once was. He used to go out there and just go after guys. Maybe that's the chin factor again. He's not as willing to get hit.
No, you're right.
There's a lot more to it, but the camp, you cannot deny that leaving Jackson's, he's now 2-6 since then, I think, or something like that. So
yeah, it kind of says it all, right? And what's so funny about him is I forgot how hot his ex was.
Oh, yeah.
Because my wife, every time he fights, she loves to just hate him because he's a cheater and a woman allegedly put hands on his ex girlfriend. Right? They weren't married.
They were married. They were married. I think.
Okay.
I think they were married. I don't know.
Anyway, she's like CrossFitter type chick.
Yeah.
I mean, super fitness model.
Yeah.
Really fine. I mean, I'm saying fine like it's the 90s. No, but she was super
She's too
hot.
fly.
Yeah, and I went on her Instagram like a stalker, and I was like, I forgot how hot she was.
Yeah.
That's a piece of ass right there.
Yeah, now he's got Rhonda. They're getting married.
Yeah, I didn't have anywhere else to go with that, but that is a piece of ass. Let's go over here. Let's go to Bellator, man. Speaking of things that could happen, Travis Brown could very well find himself in Bellator at some point, and which I don't think would be a terrible move for him. I don't know. Does Dana let anyone else go, man? Because now we see that Gegard Mousasi is now entering into the middleweight division in Bellator for how many fights?
6 fights.
6 fights.
Yeah, so at least a couple of years.
So what do you think, man? I mean, like,
it's a weird thing because
how could they let him go?
It's a head scratcher, especially considering where the middleweight division is at. I was having this conversation yesterday with somebody. When you look at the middleweight division, you look at Yoel Romero is 40. Sure. Now the guy's a genetic freak.
Right.
I mean, the guy is a freak of nature. But at some point, he's gonna walk away. He's 40 years old. He's gone through a long athletic career. At some point, he's gonna walk away. Michael Bisping has openly said he only has a couple fights probably left in his career. He's 38. He's coming up. He's doing movies.
He might as well be the same age.
Yeah, and listen, I am all for that. When you're coming up to a certain point in your career, he's built a career outside of the UFC. Good for you. Walk away. When you're talking about 2 of the marquee guys right now at middleweight, walking away, Anderson Silva, obviously he's 42 years old. He doesn't have that much time left in the sport, and obviously he's not the same Anderson Silva he once was.
Yeah, arguably he has 0 time left in the sport.
Vitor is not Vitor as he once was. So that's another marquee middleweight that's going to basically be gone. So you're depending on, Weidman, who's still out there, Kelvin Gastelum, who I love, obviously you got Luke Rockhold coming back at some point. You got Jacare still out there. But why would you let a guy like Mousasi go? Not only is he a top 5 guy in the world, he's looked better than ever in his last 5 fights. And he's still young. He's in the early 30s.
He was dream champ, right?
Yeah, and he's willing to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. He's been willing. I mean, he tried desperately to get that fight with Daniel Cormier at UFC 200 last year. He wanted it badly. And they wouldn't let him do it. He was already fighting.
He lost was to Uriah Hall. Right?
He lost to Uriah Hall, and he lost to Lyoto Machida as well early in his second UFC fight, I think it was. But I don't get it. It's a head scratcher to me. I understand he's not a big draw in terms of he's going to pull in huge ratings or anything right now. But he's been main event or co-main event in every one of his UFC fights but one. UFC 200, he fought on the undercard. That's it. Every other fight he's had has been main event or co-main event.
And originally he's from Iran, right?
Yeah, that's what.
And I think that's an incredible story.
Yeah.
For as many transplants as there are now in the United States from the Middle East, and more every day, I think he relates and transcends the UFC in a certain way that if he were to become champion, I think he talks to a whole different generation of fight fans.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that they would be so willing to let a guy like that go. I just don't understand. And there are some moves the UFC's made when they let guys go where I kind of get it. A guy like Benson Henderson who is off a couple tough fights. Yeah. Where is he going to go? Is he welterweight? Is he lightweight? He's not the most exciting guy in the world, that kind of thing. Okay, maybe you sacrifice a guy like that because, maybe you're going to pay him a lot of money and maybe you think he's not quite worth the money he wanted. Okay, fine. I kind of understand that one. But a guy like Rory McDonald,
right,
who's young, and yes, he had a little bit of a bad winning streak. He had 2 losses to Wonder Boy and to Robbie Lawler. And Robbie Lawler was one of the greatest fights of all time. A fight he was maybe 1 or 2 punches away from winning.
Absolutely.
How do you let a guy like that go? You need Canadians. You have 1 Canadian on the roster now. How do you let a guy like that go? How do you let Gegard Mousasi go when you have a thriving middleweight division right now? Middleweight's maybe better than it's ever been when you really think about it. Think about all those names I just reeled off a little bit ago.
No doubt.
And
There's a lot of fights there. I mean, him and Luke Rockhold would be a great fight.
Just let him go. I don't get it. I don't understand the logic behind it. And I also know, I understand Gegard's getting paid, pretty well. I don't know what he's getting paid at Bellator. I'm quite sure he's getting paid well. But it's not like there's not money there to do it. I mean, they've talked about dumping the entire flyweight division, for the men's division. They've talked about that. There are other contracts that, because...
Are they in that much financial trouble?
No, I don't think it's financial trouble. I think it's like, if you're going to justify paying someone, okay, I get it, but there are other guys who are out there that could... I don't want anyone to lose their jobs.
No, I understand.
But I'm just saying, if you're going to sacrifice someone, Gegard Mousasi is not the guy to sacrifice, in my opinion. There are other guys. When they let Ryan Bader go, that was another move I didn't quite understand it because of how thin light heavyweight is, but I also did understand it because Ryan had a few shots to get to a title, didn't quite get there. And I'm sure Bellator paid a lot to get him. Okay, I get that. You know what I mean? And I even though I didn't agree with it, I didn't think the UFC should let him go. I understand it to a point because he had been close but never quite gotten there. Right, you know what I mean? But a guy like Mousasi, I just don't get it. He's looked if he was on a 2-fight losing streak or if he was 2-2 in his last 4.
Yeah, you might see it.
He's won 5 in a row. He's looked better than ever lately. How do you let a guy like that go?
I mean, I think he's the guy to beat, to be honest with you. I think he would have ended up champion. I think that they were nervous of the communication once he was champion. Not obviously he speaks great English, but what I'm saying is I think that he's not one of those guys that is incredibly emotional. You know, like he's got a very martial arts Bushido type attitude where, you know, he's reserved. He's not out there talking a lot of crap. But he's also, I think he articulates his points well.
Yeah.
You know, he's been in the game for a long time.
He had a couple of those pressers where he went off on Conor and it's just like, he's a funny dude. He's a good interview. I don't get it. I don't understand the logic. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me in any way, shape, or form to let a guy like that go, especially when, you know, he's a top 5 guy. Now, if you want to let a number 10 guy, I didn't understand them letting Lorenz Larkin go either. I thought that was a guy on Star on the Rise, you know, and I'm quite sure he wasn't asking for the moon when he was asking for, you know, getting paid. I didn't understand that one either. But if you want to justify Lorenz Larkin, you could say, well, Lorenz Larkin was a number 8 guy or number 9 guy. Even that I didn't agree with. Like I said, I think they absolutely should have re-signed him. But how do you let a top 5 guy go? How do you let a top 5 middleweight go in the prime of his career where he's looked better than ever? It boggles my mind. I don't get it. But I will say kudos to Scott Coker and Bellator for making a deal and getting it done. They've signed a lot of really good talent lately, and I think they're really building something special over there. I said yesterday on Twitter, I said, you know, they're not going to beat the UFC in pay-per-view anytime soon. You and I watched the Bellator pay-per-view. Yeah. It wasn't a bad product, but they're not going to beat them on pay-per-view. But where Bellator is going to start chipping away at the UFC is with their television ratings, because they've been getting really solid ratings recently with their shows, and the UFC has been getting decent ratings on FS1. Nothing great. Spike has continued to, you know, either beat them or average nearly the same amount with their fight cards. And I think that's where it's going to be a big difference, especially with the UFC having their television contract come up next year. You know, people are going to demand that they, you know, if you're re-upping with Fox or you're signing on with Netflix or you're signing on with Amazon or another company, they're going to say, we need bigger, more marquee fight cards to put on to get ratings, because Bellator is putting on these cards with known name fighters like Gegard, like Rory McDonald, blah, blah, blah. And they're getting over 1 million views per event. And that's one of the problems the UFC is going to run into, because they're a pay-per-view company primarily. So they're going to put their title fights, they're going to put the Conors, they're going to put the bigger fights on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
What's left over for television? And I think Bellator is building a good market to really take over the television market right now, because Gegard is not a guy you're going to spend $60 to watch necessarily, but you will absolutely take the night off on Friday night to watch that dude fight.
Yeah, and I mean, with the addition, you know, we talked about this on the last podcast, but, you know, with the addition and adjustments that Bellator has made from the broadcast angle, bringing in Mike Goldberg, bringing in Mauro Ranallo, bringing in Brendan Schaub, different guys like the faces and names that you know, and you're like, oh, those are my people. Look at my people right there. Jimmy Smith, who looks like Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. Like when you see Goldberg standing with Jimmy Smith, you're like, oh, there it is. You know, like I would say super casuals are like, oh, this is the UFC. You know what I mean? Like they don't even realize. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, they've kind of positioned themselves very well to get out what they want, and that's numbers.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's going to produce numbers is this tour that's currently going on, this huge press tour, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. It's insane. I mean, the hype is out there. People think what they think, but I mean, what are you to expect now? We go to New York, we go to Canada, we go to London.
Yeah, we're going to LA first on Tuesday. It's going to be insane. It's going to be crazy. I mean, you got to realize McGregor and Mayweather have never been in the same room together. You know what I mean? Like,
is that real?
Yeah, they've never faced off. They've never met. This is going to be intense. The first face-off is going to be pretty crazy.
Who the fuck is that guy?
It's going to be pretty crazy that those two are going to square off, and the press conference is going to be nuts. And we saw the news this week that Floyd Mayweather is having some kind of tax problem. Conor is going to have a freaking field day with that one. Calls himself Money Mayweather, and Conor is going to tee off on that issue.
Oh, that's the best.
Conor, what Conor does in his mental warfare is so unprecedented in the sport, because one, there are no boundaries. You know what I mean? There's no boundaries. I mean, when he said that stuff about Rafael dos Anjos' kids.
Yeah, right.
Now, he didn't say anything egregiously bad about them, but bringing them into the conversation, you get a little cringe. You get that little bit of cringe, but then when he says what he says, you kind of laugh, and then, you see how much it bugged Rafael dos Anjos, when really Rafael dos Anjos is a pretty even-keeled, pretty soft-spoken guy. He's not that guy. You know what I mean? He's not going to give Conor a lot of ammunition. Floyd Mayweather has, talk about skeletons in the closet. This guy has freaking cemeteries in the closet. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guarantee you, Conor's going to bring up domestic violence. He's going to bring up the tax problems. He's going to bring up his arrests. He's going to bring up the fact that Floyd supposedly has struggled reading. I mean, he is going to go for the jugular.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
He is going to go for the jugular. And if people want to say it's a mismatch between Conor and Floyd in the ring, it's equally a mismatch between Conor and Floyd on the microphone. Period.
Absolutely. I mean, and Money Mayweather has enjoyed the alpha position when it comes to the trash talking in the sport of boxing. Half the guys that he fights, English is not even their first language.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is going to be a real, I think, eye-opening experience for Floyd. And we talked about this a little bit earlier on my radio show about how this could be an interesting fight because now we know that Mayweather needs the money. It's not that he just wants to fight for his legacy. He needs to fight for money. And you pointed out and made a great point that is always a dangerous situation for most fighters.
Yeah, it's everyone in prize fighting is fighting for a prize. Obviously, you're fighting for money. You're fighting to provide for your women, for your wife and children, things like that. We get that, but it's different when it's out of necessity. And I've seen it a million times. There are a million of veteran UFC fighters who have taken fights because they needed the money, and the end result is bad. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You want to fight for the money. You never want to fight because you need the money. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to do it to that point. There's a different mentality when it comes to fighting for money versus needing to fight for money. Now, Floyd put out a thing on Facebook last night where he said, don't believe anything you read, more or less fake news, he went that route. He's like, I'm perfectly fine. I got plenty of money. But the fact of the matter is that you or your manager, whoever it is, filed a grievance with the IRS asking for more time to pay until after you get the liquid assets of your McGregor fight. Now, if you're that flush with cash, as Floyd Mayweather claims to be, you don't do that. At least maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not the tax expert, but it seems crazy to me that if you have the money, you just pay it off. You know what I mean? Like,
why go through all this?
Why go through all that? Yeah. So he's trying to say it's much ado about nothing. I have a hard time believing that when there's records saying you asked for more time to pay because you want to wait until after you get this payday for the Conor McGregor fight. So, man, listen, I'm not saying this means Conor's going to win, but at the end of the day, these are all factors that are going to play a part. Floyd fighting for the money, for whatever reason, let's just say he's fighting for the money. He needs the money to pay off his taxes. And then we got Conor McGregor as the ultimate trash talker, the ultimate mental warfare expert who is going to be coming after him. These are factors that will absolutely and can absolutely play into the fight.
And that makes it more interesting. And I think, MMA guys like ourselves get more excited at that fact because, there's the one thing that I think, I'll speak for myself. The one thing that I cannot stand that's happening right now are all these, all of a sudden boxing elitists.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like 2 months ago, nobody fucking ever talked about boxing. It was us on this podcast and who else? Nobody. Okay. So now everybody is emotionally involved and they know without a shadow of a doubt that Conor's got no chance and this, that, and the third. It almost doesn't make you, because it does make me, want Conor to go out there and do what he told Dana White, stop him in the 4th round, knock him out cold.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
more than ever.
Yeah. Listen, I get it. Floyd Mayweather is good. He's great. He's one of the best of all time. And I respect everyone who has an opinion on this.
Maybe the best.
Yeah, maybe the best. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy, like everyone coming out of the woodwork now saying he has absolutely no chance. And there's MMA fighters who have done the same thing, saying he has absolutely no chance. Listen.
It's like the cool thing to say.
It's the cool thing to say. But listen, no controversial decision or not, no one would have said Jeff Horn was going to beat Manny Pacquiao a couple weeks ago. And
a school teacher.
Now, it's, yes, there's a controversial decision involved in it, but it still happened. You know what I mean? These, when these upsets, when these, kind of crazy things happen in the sport, when someone says it can never happen and it happens, it's like, Aaron Pico, I kind of made a joking, sarcastic tweet on that Saturday night of Bellator when Aaron Pico got taken out in 24 seconds. And I said, this proves Conor has a chance to win. Everyone gave me hell for it. And I was kind of half joking, but Aaron Pico was supposed to be the greatest prospect this sport has ever known, number one guy, and he got taken out in 24 seconds. He was a minus 700 favorite going into that fight. Now everyone's going back and saying, oh, he shouldn't have been that big of a favorite. He was going against a guy with 10 pro fights and blah, blah, blah. No No one was saying that going into the fight.
Yeah.
Nobody. Everyone thought this was going to be the coming out party for the next big star in Bellator. Aaron Pico was going to make this huge, massive debut. He got taken out in 24 seconds. You just don't know. Yes, we can look at 49 pro fights for Floyd Mayweather and say he's never really been in that much trouble outside of a couple small occasions. And yes, Conor McGregor has no pro fights, blah, 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 blah. You just can't say for sure.
You can't say for
you
sure.
Can't. There is no guarantee. There have been Super Bowls where a team was supposed to be the greatest, whatever, and they lost. Baseball, basketball, it has happened over and over and over again where these upsets continue to happen. And I understand Floyd is going to be a massive favorite. He should be. He's earned that right.
Yeah.
He's earned that right. But that doesn't mean Conor can't catch him. And especially now, dude, I'm telling, when you're, this whole thing with the tax thing, man, maybe I'm playing too much into it, but man, I wonder now, you need the money. You said, your tax people say you need the money. Whether you say you do or not, you need the money. I don't know, man. That's not, to me, that's not a good reason to take a fight. You should take a fight because you want to fight. And yes, you're going to get a massive payday. I get that. But if it was just about legacy,
yeah,
there are boxers out there that Floyd could have fought and continue to build on his legacy.
So now, who from the UFC is going to be involved in this upcoming, leading up to the fight and in the broadcast portion of the actual fight between McGregor and Mayweather?
Well, for the tour coming up, we have LA is going to be hosted by Mauro Ranallo.
Okay.
And they're going to have Paulie Malignaggi, the boxer from Showtime. Brendan Schaub and Ariel Helwani will be doing the commentary for the pressers.
Whoa, so Ariel got a spot on there?
Yeah, and then Ariel will host the shows in Toronto and New York. He'll take over for Mauro, and he'll do the hosting in New York and Toronto.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, London's going to have
somebody. Do you think it's so they get more press?
It's
like guaranteed
it's
press?
the MMA crossover.
Yeah?
Listen, when people
just because of Dana and Ariel's situation.
The idea that I'm sure Dana's not super excited about that one.
But wouldn't he have like a huge part in choosing who does it? Really?
Showtime's in control of this. Dana's going to be part of the presser. He's going to be basically sitting by Conor. He's going to be he's the promoter. He's Conor's promoter more or less.
Okay.
But this is a Showtime show. This is all. I mean, trust me. I know the relationship between Dana White and Brendan Schaub. I'm quite sure Dana wouldn't be jumping up and down excited about Brendan Schaub being involved either. This is Showtime show. This is all Showtime show. But at the end of the day, I'm sure the UFC doesn't care because all they have to do is show up and cash the check. They don't have to do anything. They don't take any risks. They don't have to do anything with the broadcast. They don't have to put anything into the production. They just show up and get money.
So far the trailers, for the press conference and there's a little bit for the fight, but those are just, you remember the quality difference right away. Not that the UFC has always been top quality, but there's just a certain amount of dramatic impression that Showtime and HBO both command.
Well, here's the thing with boxing. When people say boxing is dead, you're dumb. Boxing is not dead. It's never been dead. And it absolutely thrives when there are great fights. The difference between boxing and mixed martial arts, and the reason why mixed martial arts is a more predominant sport these days, is because mixed martial arts, much like football or basketball or baseball, is there is an off season in baseball, but there's always something happening in football. Football doesn't start again until September, but right now we're hearing about draft. We're hearing about the prospects. We're hearing about training camps. All these different things. Football is that obsessive sport where even when it's not happening, there's something happening. Free agency moves, general managers,
easier to talk about,
whatever. Yeah. Baseball, the same thing. There's always, baseball ends, and then immediately after that, it's talking about, the free agency thing. It's talking about, spring training, blah, blah, blah. Basketball, same thing. We just had the draft. There's talking about all these moves happening, free agency signings. There's always something happening in these sports where you still pay attention to them even when they're not in season. Now, with the UFC and Bellator and the mixed martial arts, there is no off season. There's always something happening to where you pay attention. There's another pay-per-view. There's another event on Friday. There's an event this Saturday that no one's even talking about because of Mayweather McGregor. There's a card from Glasgow, Scotland with Gunnar Nelson and Santiago Ponzinibbio. That's getting completely forgotten about. But there's always something happening in mixed martial arts to make you pay attention, and that's not the case in boxing. Yes, I'm excited about Canelo and Triple G. 100% I'll be watching it. Probably be watching it with you, Loper.
Yeah.
We'll be watching that fight together, and I'm very excited about that fight. But you don't hear about that stuff when there's not an event happening. No one pays that much attention to what, Triple G is doing with his training camp, or what Canelo is, what model Canelo's dating, or any of that kind of stuff. People pay attention to that stuff in MMA, and that's why MMA is bigger and broader as a sport as a whole. Boxing still has these mega events, but that's why I think they're drawing in guys like Brendan Schaub and guys like Ariel, who have a presence all the time. Ariel has his MMA hour every single Monday, and a ton of people tune in to watch that show. And so they're going to build on that. Brendan Schaub has 2 huge podcasts, The Big Brown Breakdown and Fighter and the Kid. He's going to promote this all the time. And there's that constant presence that you just don't have in boxing.
Do you think they tried to get Rogan and they couldn't afford him, or what?
No, I don't think they went after Rogan. I think that they want, because remember, Brendan Schaub and Ariel are part of the presser. They're not part of the broadcast team.
Is Rogan part of the broadcast team?
No. The broadcast team is just the regular Showtime team.
That's really disappointing, man.
It's Morrow and it's Paulie Malignaggi, and I think there's maybe Al Bernstein, whoever their normal boxing crew is. This is just for these pressers, these 4 pressers, where this team is in place. But either way, like I said, it's this constant bombardment of getting people to pay attention to it from now until the fight. Now, yes, everyone's going to pay attention to it, but the MMA circle in online presence and just like this kind of growing enthusiasm on social media and stuff like that, something boxing doesn't have. There are great boxing writers out there. Kevin Ioli, very good friend of mine from Yahoo, who is a tremendous boxing writer, has a tremendous presence online. Dan Raphael from ESPN is another guy. But by and large, there are not as many of those guys. Those are probably 2 of the more prolific boxing writers that are out there that you could probably name. In MMA, there are tons. You know what I mean?
I think it also goes back to MMA being that sport where you can touch and feel and see your favorite athletes. And I think the thing goes for the media as well.
Yeah.
Like when we're at UFC events, people know us, but even more so, people like Ariel's a star of sorts. You know what I mean? Like not just like in press for boxing, like you don't get a standing ovation if you're covering for USA Today. I mean, come on.
No. And I say it all the time, and listen, good or bad, one of the things that mixed martial arts has is there's an interest in everything in mixed martial arts. I mean, how many other sports can you name the freaking ring card girls?
Right. No,
the ring card girls are celebrities.
Point.
The announcers are celebrities. The commentators are celebrities. Everything has a celebrity factor to it in mixed martial arts, good or bad. Some people may say it's bad. Just like training camps. We were talking just earlier about Jackson Winklejohn. I can name Greg Jackson, Mike Winklejohn, Brandon Gibson.
Training camp.
You if you're a boxing, like hardcore boxing
wild
guy,
card.
You can name a few guys.
Because Mario Lopez probably wears the shirt when your wife's watching Extra. That's
Go on Twitter right now and say who is the person who trains Errol Spence Jr., who is a tremendous boxing prospect who I love watching.
Yeah. Are they doing some Mario Lopez on that too? Because I know he's doing some. He does analyzing for HBO or Showtime. One of the two.
I don't know. All I know is Snoop Dogg's doing commentary tonight.
Holy shit! It's amazing. Have you seen him talk about Daniel Cormier?
Daniel Cormier and Anthony Rumble Johnson.
He's both. Like, oh no! Like it's the shit. It is so
hilarious.
Good. It's beyond my expectation. And I'm a Snoop Dogg fan from the Deep Cover soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like since the beginning, and it's never disappointing, man. It's never disappointing.
Yeah, but you. MMA makes celebrities out of everybody. Dude, I say this all the time. People will come up to me at shows, and trust me, I understand, there are far bigger names in mixed martial arts media than me. Trust me, I'm not oblivious to that. But people occasionally will come up to me at shows and be like, "Can I get a picture?" And I'm literally looking at them like, "Why? Why would you want your picture with me? Like, I'm not anything special. I like telling the stories, and I appreciate that. I appreciate every person that reads my stuff. I appreciate everyone that follows me on Twitter. I appreciate all the happened with Fox Sports. I love that. I appreciate all that. But it's still weird to me when that kind of stuff happens. But that's the sport we're in, and I appreciate the sport that we're in because of that.
It's the access. You know what I mean?
That doesn't happen in boxing. It doesn't, and that's why I think
it's too buttoned up. That's why it's impossible to get close to those guys. Like I said, if you go to a UFC fight, when I go with Matt and we're walking around, Matt we walk around, you know what I mean, like normal, and and people come up, and sometimes he's flooded, and sometimes we can get places quick. Other times, not so much, but it's the fact that he doesn't throw up that barrier. Like, you're never going to see Evander Holyfield walking through the arena,
Yeah, you just see, part of UFC, part of mixed martial arts, as a fan, you can feel like you're part of the show.
Yes, exactly.
And in a way, I think everyone wants that. Everyone wants to feel like they're connected. If your favorite team, my favorite team is the Bengals, I'm sorry. My favorite team is the Bengals. You always want to feel connected to your team. Like, you want to feel like you're on the field with them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to feel you're part of that team.
Yep.
That's why people say my team, or they say we. You know, it's like, we lost that game. Well, you didn't technically lose the game. The Bengals lost that game.
Right.
That's that connection. You know, we do it. We live in Columbus. Ohio State is freaking huge here. Everyone is an Ohio State fan in Columbus pretty much.
The most.
And you always say, you know what I mean? Like, the Ohio State University, we lost a game. You want to feel part of your team. And I think in MMA you get that because the fighters are so accessible. The sport is so accessible. Dana White, I mean, the president of the organization, president, the owner, whatever you want to call him, goes out and takes pictures in the crowd, hangs out with the crowd, always does this. I mean, I was at, when I was in Cincinnati for Matt's fight, like I was at Five Guys and like Dana comes in and he's just like hanging out. Like, you know what I mean? Like Dana walks in, he's like, hey, what's going on? I was like, Dana's just like randomly at a Five Guys in Cincinnati, Ohio.
He kind of started that, you know, with the UFC. Like, you know, it was sort of that idea that, you know, he would sit down with the press and he would do these scrums with you guys where, you know, other promoters before, you know, you don't see Bob Arum doing this shit. You know, like he brought a certain connection that I think was a blueprint, and the rest of the fight. It's just our generation, I think, too. You know, like we're of the generation where you got to meet some more bands, and you know it's kind of like the punk rock angle almost. You know,
yeah. And Showtime is smart, so when they angle in and they bring in a guy like Ariel and they bring in a guy like Brendan Schaub, they're connecting to a different. They're not only connecting to the MMA audience, but they're connecting to a broader audience at whole. When it comes to, you know, the reach that Ariel has from social media to his show to Brendan with his 2 podcasts and the connection that they have is like the whole circle with mixed martial arts. It's a smart move with the guys that they brought in. And like I said, you know, maybe they eventually do bring in a Rogan because obviously Rogan is, you know, huge. I mean, Rogan could never do mixed martial arts again. Everyone's going to know who Joe Rogan is because he's Joe Rogan. Yep. Maybe they do bring him in for the actual broadcast at some point. We still don't know. They said they're going to bring in some MMA guys for the broadcast. They just haven't said who it's going to be.
What about Bruce Buffer?
I don't know.
I love your idea that he would introduce Conor and Michael Buffer would introduce Floyd. I mean,
I just saw a thing yesterday. Brilliant. I think Michael Buffer said he's not doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's got to be Bruce.
I think they don't they use Jimmy Lennon Jr. on Showtime?
Is that the blonde guy?
That's the guy who sounds like Kermit.
That is fucking hilarious. You know the guy who sounds like Kermit died? Like for real?
Yeah, I saw that.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, but the guy who's like, raining from Philadelphia,
totally. That's
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's a really good impression.
Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Definitely that guy.
Yeah, because he used to do Strike Force and Elite XC when they were on Showtime.
That's right. Yeah,
I think
totally.
He's the Showtime guy.
For CBS, of course.
Yeah, I think he's the Showtime guy. So I'm pretty sure it's Jimmy Lennon Jr. But maybe they'll do Jimmy Lennon Jr. and Bruce Buffer. That would be pretty cool if they do Buffer to do Conor. But I saw a thing with Michael Buffer saying he wasn't doing it. So
all right, well, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I don't know how you can't be. I don't know how you can't be excited for this.
People love to hate on stuff. You know, it's like the old player haters club from from Chappelle's show. Hate. Yeah, hate. I understand that this is a sideshow. I understand it's a circus, but man, I like the circus. Yeah. I like the circus. You know what I mean? I enjoy the circus. Well, maybe not so much anymore with the animal abuse, but you know what I mean? Like I enjoy the circus of it all. And these press conferences are going to be amazing. And the lead up to the fight is going to be amazing. So yes, I understand it maybe not the fight do you want if you're a purist or whatever, but guess what? It's a show and we're all here for the show. This is all entertainment. I just went and saw Spider-Man the other day in the movie theaters, and I felt like a kid again. It's my favorite.
Oh, how is that movie?
Oh my God, it's so good.
Is it fucked up that I thought the video game was coming out? I didn't realize there was also a movie.
Movie is so good.
Have you seen the video game though?
No, I haven't
like
seen
the video game play is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, the movie is fucking unbelievable. It's so good.
Really?
So good. And I felt like a kid again because I love Spider-Man.
Like you're saying the best, far and above?
Best Spider-Man movie they've made. I love Spider-Man 2, the one with Alfred Molina when he played Dr. Octopus. That was a very good one as well.
Yes.
But this one was superior. This one was superior because not only was it a good villain, it was a good story, but like Spider-Man himself was perfect. Like Tobey Maguire.
Who's the villain?
It's Michael Keaton. He plays the Vulture.
Stop fucking with me right now. Yeah. Michael Keaton
plays
is
the Vulture.
Where's Michael Keaton been since 1992 when he was Batman?
He did Birdman. Remember that? The Oscar-winning movie from like 2 years ago?
Michael Keaton's back? How can Batman be the villain of Spider-Man?
So good. He's so good in it, too.
Really?
He's so good in it, too.
That's crazy.
He's so good in it.
With that being said, you guys got to check out Damon's not MMA website, which is NerdcoreMovement.com. It's a fantastic website. I mean, if you like TV, comics, and movies, that's the website for you guys.
Get ready to get inundated with that because I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con next week, so it's going to be insane. But
do you ever see any fighters when you're out there?
Yeah, is there
any nerd, so to speak, fighters that go to that?
My first year at Comic-Con, I've gone for the last 7 years. My first year at Comic-Con, I was actually hanging out at the G4 booth. If people remember G4 television, I'm friends with Blair Butler, who used to work over there, and I was hanging out at the G4 booth, and I ran into Phil Davis. He was wearing a Pikachu crown at the time. I ran into him there. I ran into Jake
Pikachu crown.
Yeah, I ran into Jake Shields at Comic-Con a couple times. I talked to Rampage at Comic-Con. Michael Chandler was there a couple years ago with Spike. So there's been some fighters there before.
Yeah, my girl Olivia Munn came from G4.
Munn.
Yeah, she follows me on Twitter.
Does she?
Oh, yeah, she does.
Look at you being lucky.
That's my claim to fame. That's how most people know me. They're like, aren't you that guy?
Followed by Olivia Munn.
You guys can follow us, too, at Jeremy Loper, at Damon Martin. I'm at Jeremy Loper on everything except for Instagram, where some punk-ass bitch got my name. I really don't even know.
No, your Snapchat is the best one.
Snapchat, that's fine. What did I say, Instagram?
Yeah,
on Instagram, I'm at Jeremy Loper, but on Snapchat, I'm at Lopeness.
I remember the first time you told me about your Snapchat, you're like, I'm so embarrassed about this. You're like, here's my Snapchat, but it's kind of embarrassing.
That's what they call me in high school, man. Lope Ness.
Lope Ness?
Yeah, there you go.
The Lope Ness monster?
I just gave everybody heat to throw at me online. So, anyways, do we have any other ground to cover here?
I think we're good. We're gonna do a show next week before I head off to Comic-Con because I don't want to skip out on these podcasts. I like the people listening to the shows and I enjoy doing the shows. So we're gonna knock out a podcast before I leave for San Diego. We have that event in Scotland this weekend, which, like I said, it's kind of unfortunate no one's paying attention to because of the Mayweather-McGregor madness. But then the following week after that,
which is the irony because it's Conor's boy.
Yeah. So the week after that, then we got Weidman Gastelum coming up on Fox, and then we go right into Jones Cormier the week after that.
Is that Big Fox?
Big Fox, yeah.
Awesome, man. And then, if you're in Columbus, man, join me. I'm doing a local party for the Jones Cormier deal at a place called Sirens. It's a titty bar.
Naked women.
Yeah, come on by and see all the hotties, man. All right, that's going to do it for us. At Damon Martin on all social media, at Jeremy Loper, except for Snapchat, as we learned. I do have a vlog channel on YouTube, and I would appreciate if you guys checked it out, LoperandRandyTV.com, and my website, LoperandRandy.com. You can listen to my traditional radio show, man. We'll see you guys next time.